its discussion and possible action to enter into a development agreement with Amkor Technology Arizona, Inc. for the purpose of developing an advanced semiconductor packaging and testing facility in Peoria, Arizona. This is a very promising development for the future of Peoria. The surge in demand for smart devices across the globe has created a shortage of semiconductors, as we all know. Amkor Technology is an important player in closing this gap, and having their facility located in Peoria will create job opportunities and further economic development in the area. Mayor and council should be familiar with this item, having heard presentations in 2 previous executive sessions. Deputy City Manager Mike Faust and Economic Development Director Jennifer Stein, along with Senior Vice Presidents David McCann and G. Park from Amkor Technology, will discuss the development agreement for your consideration and approval. Thank you.
Great.
Manager Darwin, thank you. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. We're excited to bring this. Jen will get us started. Mr. McCann will give some insights on Amkor, and then I'll brief you on the components of the deal before taking any questions.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, we're really excited to bring and discuss a significant project that is in alignment with your vision and priority on economic development as being one of the 4 pillars. So we'll jump in. As part of our economic development strategy, we have been pursuing companies in the semiconductor sector. We've also been focusing our energy in the strategy on job creation and also generating new revenue for the city. Because semiconductor and microelectronics is such an important sector to us for a couple reasons. One is our close proximity to TSMC, and even more beyond that is that we have a very talented workforce. And we have specialized educational programming in semiconductor and microelectronics in Peoria. And we also have access to infrastructure and a business-friendly climate, which makes the ecosystem really meaningful and important for our efforts. Again, our goal is to attract high-quality jobs and opportunities to advance our city economically. And this is part of our, as you can see, our target sectors that we are going to bring actually forward to you soon, our complete strategic plan. Creating a regional cluster is important because we are looking at a workforce strategy that demonstrates the talent pipeline we have in our region, as well as the shared resources and collaborative partnerships. So here's how we got here. We initially received an E-Track, which is a request for proposal from GPEC and ACA, our partners, back in September of 2021. It came in under a code name. There are all kinds of funny code names out there, so I didn't at the time know it was Amkor. But we never let it go. We never left it. So in February of 2023, we re-engaged. We actually met with an executive leader from Amkor and pitched Peoria. We talked about all of our assets, all of the opportunities we have in Peoria that could make a project and company successful. In March 23rd, we began meetings with the Amkor executive and senior leadership group. April 5th and April 25th, we started site tours, identifying a site that really accommodates the requirements and the needs and the semiconductor ecosystem that we are all working on together to develop. In June 2023, Mayor and team met with the CEO of Amkor and the executive team, and that is when we began our development agreement negotiations. So let me tell you a little bit about Amkor Technology, our partner in the project we're talking about tonight. Amkor Technology is a Fortune 500 global company with $6.5 billion in annual sales and is one of the world's largest providers of semiconductor packaging, design, and test services. This is a 2-phased project with $350 million of capital investment and 550 jobs in phase 1. Phase 2 is $700 million of capital investment and encompasses 850 jobs total. The Amkor total investment is up to $2 billion with 2,000 jobs. It will be the city of Peoria's largest private employer. It is also going to be one of the USA's largest outsourced advanced packaging facility, 500,000 square feet of manufacturing space. This is just an illustration that demonstrates the phasing and the integration of the two, with the phase one starting on the east side of the property, which is in the Vistancia Commercial Core and Employment Core, 5 North. As you can see, the current building design is approximately 46 to 50 feet and is subject to Vistancia's design requirements and approval, as well as ours through our planning process. It took a team to get here, so I just want to talk about for a moment and just do a couple of thank yous and shout-outs. Economic development is definitely a team sports with lots of players. So Mayor and Council, I first want to thank you for your leadership and vision. I also want to thank City Manager Henry Darwin for all of his support. Assistant City Manager Rick Buss, who got that DA drafted, is one of the quickest DAs I've seen. Deputy City Manager Mike Faust finalizing and working tirelessly the last few weeks, especially on finalizing the DA to bring it to you tonight. Our Deputy City Manager Kevin Burke as well, who oversaw some of the departments that we worked very closely with. Water Services, Development, Engineering, Planning, Office of Communications, and of course the City Attorney's Office. Michael Dines worked really, really hard on this DA that you are looking at or have been in review. Vistancia, also I want to recognize Mark Hammonds and Karen Howard here today, tremendous partners in advancing this project. And of course, we really appreciate Amkor Technology for choosing Peoria as their home. This is a tremendous investment in our community, $2 billion, and we're looking forward to this partnership. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over. We also want to thank G Park is right here. He's Senior Vice President of the Memory Business Unit and ATA Project Management Leader, which is like the longest title I've ever seen. And then, of course, over here, I'm going to turn it over to David McCann, Senior Vice President of the Business Unit, Chief of Staff, to do the next part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for this opportunity. It's really an honor to be here. Let me get to my slides. So I thought it would be helpful to explain first where our business fits in this semiconductor supply chain. I mean, we hear semiconductor supply chain a lot, but we don't. Amkor is in a part of that supply chain that's not very well known. So I wanted to help you understand where we fit. In our view, kind of the supply chain, we start with what we view as the end customer. The end customer designs a product. We never take, we don't own that product. We provide a service, a manufacturing service for those products. So an end customer would be somebody like an a Dell computer, a General Motors, an Apple, a Samsung, somebody who makes and designs a product. Second part in that supply chain is they may design their own ICs, or they may contract with a semiconductor company, somebody like a Broadcom who might design their ICs for them. Then they contract with a wafer manufacturer. Oh, Henry, could I get the props? Yeah. All of them. Okay. I brought some props so you can kind of, as I kind of go through this, see, we have the advantage that we make something kind of big enough that you can see it. So then our end customer contracts with a wafer manufacturer, somebody like an Intel or a TSMC. And all three of those companies can be our customer. So it depends on the business model of the particular end customer. Do they do a supply chain that then they have a contractor or a company that is our direct customer, or is the end customer our direct customer? We describe ourselves as an OSAT, an outsourced semiconductor assembly and test company. And that's an important term in understanding where we fit. So as I said, we never take ownership of a product. We're providing manufacturing services. Those services, in our case, are bump, probe, assembly, and test, but you can think of it as assembly and test for simplicity. And then our end customer directs us where to ship their product to. So we've assembled, and on the next slide I'll show you what that means. And we ship then to what we call an EMS, or an electronic manufacturing company, and they assemble the components that we build onto a PC board. So like the green PC board that you see in your computers. So that's kind of the end supply chain, and then it goes to a box build company like a Foxconn or somebody like that. That's where we fit. It is important to understand from our business standpoint that we exist because we lower costs for our end customer. those first three circles, they originally had all of the assembly and test infrastructure for our industry inside their own companies. They built their own, they did their own assembly and test. It became too expensive. So Amkor was the first OSAT, and we put those assets into our company, and we spread their costs by being able to do assembly and tests with the investments we make for our 500 or 1,000 customers, and spread their costs. And it's one of the reasons why, if you look at any one electronic product, it tends to come down in price over time. And it's because of this, one of the reasons is this outsourcing, whether it's to TSMC or whether it's to us, of this business and spreading costs over a very large asset base. The picture on the left is a wafer, and it's being passed around. Yep, excuse me just a second. So inside this protective container is a silicon wafer. So this would be something like that TSMC or Intel would ship to us, and we would then do in the middle picture, there's a picture of an IC. That's a singulated one of the integrated circuits across this wafer. We do the interconnect, which we call bump, which are small solder interconnects that we deposit across the surface of the wafer. And then we probe, which is a test operation to make sure we understand which of the ICs on this wafer are good. And then we do assembly, and then we do a final test operation. Something like this would be what we end up shipping. This would be a data center part that would go into eventually into a data center like a Cisco would use. Something that generates a lot of heat. You get a lot of metal in this to get heat out. Something like this would be a typical part that would go into like a computer, laptop computer, something like a microprocessor. And then smaller parts that go into cell phones. So that's kind of the distribution of what we do. Our business tends to grow in big spurts. So if you look at from 2000, first laptops, desktops, then adoption of new industries created in gaming, and then smartphones. And now we're in kind of a new dynamic of growth with artificial intelligence, the interconnectivity of things, all the sensors and cameras that surround us in our cars and in our environments. That's going to grow, we think, our business, the overall semiconductor supply chain, from about $500 billion to about $1 trillion by 2030. So it's really a big growth opportunity and helps drive the need for us to be here. Okay, so that's a little bit about our industry, Amkor now. So we were the first outsourced semiconductor assembly and test company, as I said. We pioneered this industry. We've been around for 55 years, actually 55th anniversary last year. We have 12 million square feet of manufacturing space in 11 countries around the world. We invest about $800 million in CapEx a year for a revenue of about $7 billion a year. We are the #1 OSAT for automotive assembly, and we have about 30,000 employees worldwide. This is our footprint, our manufacturing footprint around the world. Mostly we're an Asian company with a relatively new factory in Portugal. One of the things that draws customers to us is our diverse geographic footprint. And another advantage recently is more from a geopolitical standpoint. We are mostly a non-China, non-Taiwan company. You can see a lot of footprint of factories in other places, and that helps our customers diversify their manufacturing choices. The picture on the left now is what our facility in Peoria will look like. So 2 buildings. Our strategy and how we build is usually we secure a site and then we build gradually out that site. We try to plan for the long term and fill as we go. The picture on the right-hand side, when I say like clean room space, what does that mean? It really is a clean room. So that's the inside of one of our clean rooms before we brought in equipment. We usually have a space underneath where we bring in the facilities to feed the equipment. The equipment sits on that floor. There's high airflow that keeps particles away from the product, and that's critical for our yield. So we really have a very clean environment, and I'll show you some pictures of once tools are in and what that looks like. We have a large diversity in our business. Communications, as you might expect, cell phones, smartphones is our biggest business, about 50% of our overall revenue. As I said, we're number one in automotive assembly and test in the world. That's 21% of our business. Computing, things like data centers, PCs, an important part of our business, and then consumer, things like gaming, wearables, headphones, all that stuff has electronics in it that we assemble. Virtually every product you have has something from Amkor where we provided the manufacturing service for the components inside it. Jen mentioned the size, $2 billion overall spending at full build-out, 500,000 square feet of clean room space. Will grow with customer demand on the site, and we expect to be in production in 2 to 3 years at this site. The picture on the right-hand side is a view down one of the corridors of our factories. You can see very, so now we've got some, infrastructure populating this. This is one of the hallways that feed the tool lines. Will be a highly automated facility, and you can see in the kind of upper left-hand corner of the picture, I don't think I'll try pointing, there's kind of ivory-colored boxes along the ceiling, and those are delivering, they have containers and deliver these to the tools. Okay, so the people we have in the facility are programming equipment, problem solving, setting up equipment, and then planning the next loads and next equipment setups. You mentioned the benefits of onshoring and the importance to our country of onshoring. The government really wants to see an onshore semiconductor supply chain. We want that as well. We expect to hire 2,000 new direct, and I put in quotation marks, good jobs. This is one of the definitions of the CHIPS Act within workforce development, the term good. It's a little hard, it's a little vague, but as you read the whole document, it becomes pretty clear. It's about health care for employees, good pay, good working environment, continuous education, offering career growth and child care, and the list goes on, but it really is providing a long-term good job for many people. Another benefit of this is, think of like TSMC and Intel kind of bringing a company like Amkor. You think of the next step in the supply chain. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense to just have the fab. Bring the next step in the assembly, in the supply chain here. That would be an Amkor assembly and test facility. We'll likely be able to attract more companies that are our suppliers. TSMC likewise on their suppliers. That will build more infrastructure, more jobs. And I would say that really key is it does no good to have a building unless you have the people, the talented people to fill it. So having the workforce development partnerships with entities like WestMech for high school attraction into STEM jobs, Maricopa Community College, terrific partner, ASU, Purdue, Northern Arizona University. All are our partners helping us to figure out how do we attract enough people into this industry so that we have an adequate, call it supply chain of people that are bringing the talent and the skill sets that we need. They're also helping us focus on diversity of talent. We're a very diverse company, kind of by definition and nature. We need to hire a very diverse community. It's a good goal, but it's also, we won't succeed without it because we need to enable a lot of people to become employees in this industry, and we need those communities to be part of it. We have a strong environmental commitment. We have a net zero goal to be net zero on greenhouse gas emissions over time, so that's a 2050 goal, and to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions significantly by 2033. participate in industry standard groups to help us understand what are the expectations and metrics and reporting methods and entities that we need to work with to make sure that we're aligned with industry standards for environmental commitments. We have water and wastewater goals of 20% reduction in all of our factories worldwide by 2030, and we're completely committed to support Peoria's path to maximize water reclamation in this facility. Picture in this, on the right-hand side of this chart, just shows one of our typical aisles of equipment. You know, the equipment is fairly large. Typical investment of one piece of equipment might be $500,000, something in that range. And you can see clean room garb on the employees kind of in the hallway as you go back in the blue. This is our working environment, very clean, very temperature controlled, good environment to work in. So just to wrap up, why Amkor? So as I mentioned at the beginning, we invest a lot of money in R&D. Our intention is to bring our best technology here. So we want this to be the leading assembly and test facility in the world, and we want it to be here in the United States, in Arizona. Our headquarters is here. So we're in Tempe. That's where G and I are based. There's no other OSAT, outsourced semiconductor assembly and test company, based in the United States, and we're here. So it makes total sense to do a facility here. We also have the supply chain with TSMC and Intel here. So it really is making sense to bring this whole supply chain into this valley. We have a very broad customer base in the industries that I showed you, and we bring scale, stability, and profitability demonstrated by 56 years now of experience. Not only were we first, but now we've been around the longest. So we've demonstrated our capability. So we're excited to bring this manufacturing leadership position into Arizona. And just we want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about it today. Specifically, we could not have gotten to this point in the ask without the help of the folks next to me. This is our first facility in the United States. We have a lot to learn about how to do this well, and they've just been terrific. Arizona Commerce Authority helping us understand incentive opportunities and who to partner with. The education entities that I mentioned. TSMC has been a great mentor to us, what they've already learned, a similar kind of Asian manufacturing background, and helping us understand, lessons learned at building a facility here. Kaiser, our owner's representative, and sorry, I kind of switched words. The Greater Phoenix Economic Council has helped connect us very well. So these are our partners. We could not do this without them, and our goal is to make onshore a semiconductor assembly and test a reality in the United States. Thank you.
You spend so much time working on deals like this, you forget how neat and exciting this opportunity is. But I'd like to step back just a couple slides real quick before I go over the deal points. I want to just make sure folks in the council get a couple of nuances in the numbers. You heard in Jen's initial slides, $350 million, $700 million, and then you'll hear Dave talk about $2 billion of investment. And this just matters on how we're measuring capital expenditure. So from Dave's standpoint, as he said, there's machines that cost $500,000 a piece. Well, they're looking at total capital expenditure across all of the fit up, all the equipment, all the fixturing. When Jen spoke to $350 million or $700 million total investment, she's speaking just about site improvement and facilities, the things that the city generates tax revenue off of construction. So when you see a slight difference there, that's what you're talking. Total capital expenditure from the Amkor facility being $2 billion, where the city's recognition of sales tax generation, or I'm sorry, construction sales tax generation is off either the $350 million, $700 million total. Another place you might see some discrepancy, or not really discrepancy, but nuance is you heard Jen say up to 850 jobs, and you've heard Dave say 2,000. At full scale and full tilt, we're confident they'll get to the 2,000. The 850 is the base minimum inside of the contract, and as we talk through the deal points, That's what they've committed to contractually. That's the floor, that's the minimum, versus the aspirational being the 2,000. The other thing I'll call out, I'm going to go back one more because I think it was a better image. This one here. Transparently, I remember the first time we started having the conversation, so what do these factories look like? Because pictorially, we only have in our mind what TSMC looks like, right? A very large building. And look, these aren't small facilities per se. They're 500,000 square foot in totality. But when we think about the building height from an elevation standpoint, you're looking at buildings that range between 45 and 50 foot tall. And so as we look at this layout, the tallest building there is the utility building, about 54 feet tall. To give you a matter of perspective, City Hall sits at 54 foot tall. And so it's far different than when you're driving up I-17, you hit the 303 and you're seeing a 100-foot building with TSMC versus what's proposed here. I mean, although it's part of the supply chain, they're not a one-for-one comparison. So I wanted to just pull out those two highlights, and I'm certain there'll be some more questions as we get in. But my part of this presentation is going to focus on the deal. We've been jokingly saying, in fact, my 18-year-old told me, she heard me talking on the phone, and she says, "Dad, how did it take you 32 versions of a deal to get to a completion?" I say, "Because it's complex, that's why." So inside of the deal, there's a series of milestones, and in those milestones is really kicking off tonight. There's the first two being the purchase and sale agreement. That's an agreement with Vistancia to acquire the land, and then the economic development agreement that's before you tonight for your consideration. Assuming or hopefully saying that's approved, the next path is to go to Amkor's board for full approval of their total investment package. It's one thing to go in and do this acquisition of land in this deal. It's another thing for them to commit $2 billion. It's a healthy decision. Inside of that, they close escrow on the property by October of this year with a groundbreaking of September 30th of 2025. Expected completion of the first phase of investment by September 30th of 2027, and then an all-in investment, at least committed to this deal, by 2034, a total of 10 years long. You could see some employment milestones because we see them ramping up over time. 300 jobs at the onset of the factory, and then 125 more each year for the next 2 years. And then a lull as they set and see the market, and in the second phase of investment, ultimately ramping up to the 850 jobs. A lot of work has been done. In the next couple of slides I'll talk through are really a lot of meaningful back and forth between two organizations trying to get to a positive and similar outcome, but making sure each interests are protected. We know it's important for the council to make sure the city's interests are secure with these types of agreements. And so inside of it, there's a series of remedies. And so at each of the milestones I described in the previous slide, should Amkor not meet those, then ultimately there's clawbacks for the city. The first one being if we do not close escrow or groundbreaking does not occur by the date or within the cure period thereafter, ultimately you'd have a reversion of the land, and then the water rights that we've committed to the project would also return back to the city. The project wouldn't proceed. If Amkor breaks ground, and they go on for the 2 years, and then there's a cure period of about 120 days thereafter. If they're late to that and it's not through any force majeure issues, then there's a liquidated damages for being late, a penalty of up to $5,000 a day for being late to that construction. In the event they finish construction but they don't achieve the full capital expenditures or they don't hire the employees, there are accountability measures for each of those. On the employment side, if they fall short of the 300 employees at launch, they have to report that, and then ultimately it's $5,000 per employee they're short per month until the point they hit that milestone, right? And each of those milestones, so then they hit the 300, that would get them to the next milestone measurement of 425 a year later. Should they miss that one, then the same provision would be. There are caps on this particular one, $2.4 million cap for the employment deal, but it applies to each milestone. The cap is for all 4 employment milestones. Should they fail to invest up to $350 million in capital expenditure for the site and the vertical construction, there is a liquidated damages inside of that. And so ultimately, $350 million of investment is set to generate $6.3 million worth of construction sales tax for the city. So if they did not, let's say they only invested $300 million, then essentially they would get credit for the tax that was paid, and they'd have to pay a liquidated damages of the delta between the 350 and this hypothetical 300. And the same set of provisions exists for the second round of investment later in the project. City investment side. So on the public infrastructure, we did commit to support with some roads. So on the south side of the property, a road with standard utility package in, and on the north side of the property, one segment. So it'd be roads and utility delivery. It's got an approximate cost of about $3 million. The city does have access to controlled land as part of our Vistancia development agreement. That land was offered up inside of this provision. And we have conducted a legal and fiscal analysis that indicate that the city's in good standing. And I pulled out an excerpt from the economic impact analysis that says, over the 10-year of this assessment, the total fiscal impact of construction and operations will return $50 million to the state, $16 million to the county, and $15 million to this city. So a total of $81 million of tax generation. It's a pretty significant investment here for our city. Water side, we said it from the beginning of the deals as we negotiated back and forth. Water would be the biggest topic we discuss, and it will be the last topic we discuss. And at Thursday at 4:30 in the afternoon, we jumped on a call and we hammered it out, the last 3 provisions. And I was telling somebody the story this morning. There was 4 variables and 1 sentence in the development agreement, and it took us that whole time to go through each one of those variables and decide on each one of them needed to be. And the reason we were able to get to this point was, and Dave said it in their presentation, from the very beginning, Amkor was very clear on their commitment to the environment, their commitment to meet us in this path of saying, hey, reclaimed water is the right solution. So you'll see in the development agreement and what I've highlighted here, the city has provided reclaimed water as a primary source of water with a potable backup. So should the A+ quality rating of the potable or the reclaimed water drop, we would supplement that with potable water, until which time that water is returned to the A+ standard, and then they'd be in full service of reclaimed water once again. Inside of the deal, Amkor is committed to 80% or more wastewater return. And as such, we've committed a large amount of water. So when you look at it on the base, it'll say 980,000 gallons a day. But in reality, when you're supplying reclaimed water, you're post-treating that water for toxins, you're cleaning it back to A+ reclaimed status, your net usage of water is really only about 200,000 gallons a day. So this is a very wise approach to a high water demand by bringing reclaimed water as the primary, then retreating it essentially back to the A+ standard and putting back into the larger loop. And it's a very good thing for the city. Amkor is required by federal and city code requirements to treat the wastewater streams, and so there are provisions inside of the agreement for you to look at. And then collectively we've agreed, and as I've said, we spent a large amount of time talking about how to problem solve water, wastewater. So we've agreed in principle to collaboratively design, fund, construct, and operate this holistic recycled water solution. Some of that might include treatment on their site, and it will, but we've also talked about some public-private partnerships and how we might leverage those things for the benefit of the community. So with that, staff's recommendation to the council is to adopt item 9R, the economic development agreement with Amkor. And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Councilor Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, Jen, Mike, thank you. A lot of information. I have a handful of questions because I know that I received a lot of kind of questions and comments from some of the constituents, so bear with me for just a minute. Land and location. The location, it has the entitlement and the legal rights to move forward with the construction. So basically it has the entitlements for the planning and zoning and everything. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, yes, the property out in Vistancia in the commercial core is zoned for this. It's part of the PCD, and as I mentioned, the PCD permits many uses. The commercial manufacturing space is one of those uses. The zoning allows for heights up to 85 feet. As we've described, these buildings are well inside of that. Most of them are in the below 50-foot range. I think the tallest I've seen on the plan provisions now is just over 50, about 53 foot tall. So yes, the land is entitled. However, as we've seen in the site plan, we think this fits that look and feel. I will additionally note, and I think Jen touched on this in her slide, that the property is subject to the Vistancia design requirements, and so we've spent quite a bit of time going over the site plan. We've spent quite a bit of time working with Amkor and Vistancia so they understand what the look and feel. Vistancia has done an excellent job of building that community, and this is will bolster that, right? It brings jobs into the commercial core. It was the plan, but it's not intended to detract from it, so it will stay with the look, the feel. I know in the depictions we showed, you have giant white buildings, and they're not gonna be giant white buildings. At the end of the day, they will fit the character of the commercial core because they're subject to the Vistancia design guidelines.
Mike, thank you for that information, because that brings me to the kind of the design. I wanted to make sure, you know, Vistancia is award-winning master plan community year after year. I think they're 10, 11 years now. And I wanted to make sure that it was going to be within the Vistancia design requirements, and it was, and I'm glad to hear it's within the PCD, so it has the legal right to move forward and everything, and it will be addition to the community. Is that correct? Is that a safe statement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, that is correct. And I can tell you early on, I would say maybe in the June, July timeframe, we spent countless hours with Vistancia, with Amkor on the phone, talking through what the site plan looks like, how would it look, what do setbacks look like, where are trees gonna go, how is the space still walkable, how can we still ride bikes in the commercial core. We debated the widths of the roads and how do they fit in. We've discussed traffic and traffic flow, how many trips in, how many trucks in. It's 2 trucks in the morning and it's 2 trucks in the afternoon. What does shift changes look like? How are we gonna move the shift changes away from the school that's moving in? We've gone through countless iterations and discussion, and we haven't even gotten to the deal yet. We need you guys to say yes so we can get into the real work. But I feel very confident that the partnership we've established, the 3-way partnership between Vistancia, Amkor, and the city, and the commitment we have, will be successful in returning value to the community.
Thank you, Mike. Actually, you're answering, I'm checking off a lot of my questions. You're answering, the other one was streets and traffic flow, because I want to have a minimal impact to the community. The people who lived up there for 20-plus years, they love their community. And so you talked about, you're already looking at traffic and trip, and the $3 million investment would be in for streets so that we can make sure that the traffic's flowing appropriately. And correct me if I'm wrong, this project will also expedite some of the additional traffic projects in that region or that area. Is that correct, Mike?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, you know, if I lived in the area, and I don't live far from it, right? I'm a resident of Peoria myself, and so our city, our traffic engineers and our team has thought through it deeply to understand we need to be thinking about not just the traffic in this particular area, but how do we open up the traffic interchange at El Mirage to bring traffic up over the canal to give an alternate way to stay away from that. We're working closely with, in fact, we just signed off on the purchase order the other day to move money to ADOT so we can move forward with that design of the El Mirage traffic interchange off 303. We're working on getting additional funds to help with the design of Jomax through to lighten traffic there. We're looking at, and is going to be in the CIP for this council to consider here in a few months, is a redesign of the interchange at Happy Valley and Vistancia, because that intersection needs to be done. So this project is part of a larger overall strategy for us in that entire surrounding area. In fact, we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk to you about the land all south of here, about 1,600 acres, where we will talk through what the overall vision is of not only bringing better traffic flow, but also bringing amenities to the community, right? Places like Amkor allow other businesses to stand up so that way you have daytime work, because we know that restaurants, we know that places need 2 meal services to make money. So having places like this in the community allows us to stand up other retail and commercial entities that will then allow the community to have the amenities they've been searching for a long time.
Mike, you bring up amenities and restaurants. A lot of the community, they hear the commercial core 5 North, and they think the high street with the restaurants and the shops, which they're anticipating. This will not impact it. If anything, to your point, it will bring those amenities and restaurants and shops that the people of Vistancia and the North Peoria area have been asking for a while. Is that correct, Mike?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, yes, I'd say so. I think when we look at Vistancia and our partners here, they've thought this through in great detail. It's called the commercial core for a reason, right? When they think about the density of housing, the location of the retail space. It always thought through that there was employers in the space too. So yes, it should complement it well. It does complement it well. It's been thought through exceptionally well. Now it's time to get going. Now it's time to build the projects and move from just a desert into things that generate revenue, allow people to not have to drive so far to go to work, and then also support local businesses so we can have restaurants and retail space in the area.
Michael, I want to talk about water for a second. You talked the main line was going to be reclaimed water. Second line was potable water as a backup. And then water reclamation will take place on site. So basically, we're looking about 80% of the reclaimed water that we send to Amkor will actually get back, which equals about 200,000 gallons a day. Is that a safe statement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, yeah, so part of the strategy there is to make redundancy in high-volume factories is important, and so one of the reasons why this site is fantastic for Amkor is a redundancy of APS power. And so one of the ways the city could assure them of support is to bring reclaimed water supply line in, but have a potable backup. So we'll ultimately put 2 oversized lines to the property. Whether reclaimed full pre-treatment and full reclamation happen on site remains to be determined. We'll get through that, but the water's got to be retreated. That 80% backflow, as you had talked about, we will then make sure it's clean and put it back into the total reclaim system for utilization throughout the city.
Pause right there for a second. We'll come back to you. Councilor Finn.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. Councilmember Schaefer has asked a few of them that I wanted to touch on, so I'm not going to rehash those. Number one, as I was looking through the slides, did I decipher this to be the largest manufacturing plant in the world? I thought the rest of them were about 410,000 square feet. Is this going to be the largest, or did I read it incorrectly?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Finn, the answer was in the United States, right? So I don't think it's the largest in the world, but it will be the largest manufacturing site of this type in the country.
Okay. I thought I'd read that the largest one was like 0.41 million square feet, but okay.
Yeah,
I do make mistakes every now and again. I can see that
every
clearly.
once in a while.
I had a question on the land, if you don't mind. So I saw a lot of the liquidated damages and different things. It sounds like we have protected the city very well in this agreement. This is a very complex, I agree with you, this is a complex agreement. And this is an incredible opportunity for the city of Peoria. I want to thank you all for putting this together. It's amazing. It's very complicated. On the land, is there a clawback on that land that would take place?
Sir, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Finn, you'll see here if they don't break ground,
Yep.
there is a clawback on the land and on the water rights. Once they break ground, then it's all financial transaction.
Okay.
So we've equipped, so there is a max liquidated damages of $15 million across the 10-year agreement, and if you'll look, the tax generation by the property is $15 million over 10 years.
Okay.
So we've matched those up well.
Sounds like you've planned this out pretty well.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Finn, yes, sir.
Okay. So those were questions for myself. I'm going to ask one question really kind of for the public, and you and I have talked. I already know the answer to this question, but as I read through the press, the great press that we're getting about this, I recognize a commonality between a high-ranking executive's last name and your last name. For the public, I just want to make clear, there is no family connection, any relation in that regards, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Finn, for the record, the CFO of Amkor's last name happens to be mine. Ironically, her husband's name happens to be Mike Faust. Legitimately, he is not me. She is not my wife. So I appreciate the question. I have heard people spread that rumor maliciously around, but for the record, my wife is not the CFO.
Okay. Again, that was a question for the public. I already knew the answer. I just wanted to bring it up.
I appreciate
Yep,
the question.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. No more questions.
Ally?
Thank you, Mayor. You guys talked a lot about promoting a diverse community as well as partnerships and collaborations. So I was wondering what you are looking for in those partnership and collaborations, and what are your long-term goals?
You want to take that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council Youth Liaison Bethstein. That's an excellent question. First of all, Amkor is a catalyst, right? So this is when we talk about the ecosystem and we're attracting a supply chain, it really starts with a collaborative partnership with our educational groups such as high schools and our college system, our regional partners, suppliers. So it really is, I mean, even down to childcare services we were talking about, the CHIPS funding, it starts even what resources and business resources can be shared within the ecosystem. So we know, again, a company of this magnitude is going to attract suppliers and customers and other businesses to the area, and then how do we capitalize on that so that is our goal. Our goal is really to complete or start to integrate the ecosystem in becoming a semiconductor hub, if you will, where Peoria is now on the map. This is our brand. We are going to be known worldwide that Peoria is the place where we have advanced packaging and substrates. So it really does give us an opportunity and exposure, not only locally, regionally, and statewide, but internationally. We're going to be known as a major player in this space. Thank you.
Councilor Edwards?
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of my questions have already been answered, Mike, by you. One about the water reclamation, so thank you for bringing that for clarification. The other one was talking about the maximum height, because I didn't want to see a TMSC-sized building going up, and I think you've assured us that its maximum height is 50 feet. Is that correct?
54.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Edwards, yes, at a minimum, we know that it can't exceed the PCD requirements that exist, but the site plans we've seen says it's in this 50-foot range, and it seems adequate. We'll get into more detail and as we go forward, but you won't have a TSMC equivalent on your hands.
And then lastly, it's not even a question, it's more of a comment. I want to thank you and staff for the due diligence that you guys have done on this project and the countless meetings with Amkor representatives. Thank you for coming out and answering all of our concerns and questions. Since my time on council, this has got to be the biggest game changer that I think I've been involved in during my time. This is going to definitely put Peoria on the map, not only Peoria, but the West Valley and the state of Arizona. So I just want to thank you, for all of you, for doing the due diligence and bringing this forward to us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Schaefer?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo a few things that have already been said. Really appreciate the protections that are in this agreement. You know, thinking about the city and the people and making sure that those protections are in there. So I wanted to thank that. Thanks, Councilmember Finn, for asking about the land and water rights. That was one of my questions. Thank you. And then two last questions, Mike. The $3 million investment for the streets for the city. ROI, I think I saw somewhere on a slide, it was like we're going to get $15 million off the $350 million over 10 years. So our ROI on that $3 million is year and a half. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, just a point of clarity, the $15 million is across the lifespan of the project. But if you wanted to put it in that perspective, the first $350 million CapEx is $6.3 million of tax generation. So it would be more than adequate to cover.
And then last question, going back to the design and the Vistancia design guidelines and everything, going forward, obviously, really engaged community, and so how do we engage the community in what we can control going forward in regards to the design and the traffic and everything?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Schaefer, we'd be more than happy to meet with concerned community members. The team is committed to making this right. Amkor is committed to making this right. Vistancia has invested 25 years of their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears into getting it right. They're great partners with us. I'm convinced we'll get it right. But if there's people who have concerns, I'm more than happy to sit down and have those conversations. They're concerns that we had. The amount of time, energy, and blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into make sure that this is the right thing for the city is significant. And so we're more than happy to share more information, answer questions to any of the community members that might have them.
Thank you, Mike. Mayor, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other council members? I am going to, do you mind staying seated for just a little bit? Before we go? All right. Mr. Larry Boris, before I have you come up, I'm going to read this, right? Next, call it, no, we'll do call the public out. So just making sure that you're stating your name and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. I'm Larry Boris. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm a resident of Trilogy, living in Vistancia since 2019. I moved to Trilogy in Vistancia because of their location, the entrance to the Sonora Desert, the beauty, the quality of the homes, and the master plan of Vistancia. And the vision of Peoria itself and its support of its residents and vision to make sure that it's a community of high quality and one that people want to be with. I do support the Amkor development. I support the city of Peoria incorporating it. However, I do not support the location of that. I'm here to express my concerns, though, that the approval of this will be first of several Amkor-related projects in this area, which is now owned by what's called 5 North Development in Vistancia. And we need to protect that area, which will change dramatically unless action and planning is done. I am unaware of any public input, community views, or meetings being held that considered the residents' view of where this is at and what's going on. 5 North has described itself as an award-winning developer, having done High Street and Scottsdale Quarters. They promote the 7,000 square foot Vistancia master plan as being a dynamic and vibrant lifestyle community. 5 North has done an open house where they invited us all to see what they were doing, both on the retail side, the restaurant side. They said they're going to have hotel. They said a school. Then they said they would have a commercial and buildings. There was never a mention of manufacturing plants or of that size or high-story buildings. A leader of 5 North stated that Vistancia completes the vision by having this kind of development, by having Vistancia and 5 North in their way of promoting it. While it was noted in their maps about the commercial section, the Discover never showed any manufacturing be developed in that area. You don't see any manufacturers by High Street or Kirtland Corn or Scottsdale Corn, and yet the city of Peoria has promoted this as a semiconductor opportunity for other manufacturers. Unlike the massive Taiwanese semiconductor plant being built north of the 303, it is in a desert area, away from housing, far removed from the traffic and issues that we have here. Amkor will be at the heart, at the entrance of Vistancia, as you enter the community, adjacent to community shopping and housing. Our community has few buildings over 2 stories high. Amkor is being built, as I said, by 4 stories, and they're allowed under zoning to be up to 85 feet, blocking mountain views, deserts views, changing the entire character of the Vistancia community. So I would ask that the council, the developer, and the city and Amkor consider a different location closer to the Joe Max and 303 intersection, or the Lone Mountain and 303 intersection, away from the entrance point. I ask the city council to consider the location where I've mentioned, to try to identify impact studies on the traffic, the noise, the trucks, environmental pollution, and other areas. Currently, Vistancia Boulevard is backed up totally on Happy Valley and Vistancia with the housing. I'm concluding in a couple of seconds, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I ask that you do some studies to review the impact and how this can be reduced, such as sound barriers, such as landscaping and other areas. I suggest you propose solutions and have a community input to reduce the negative impacts on our community, the quality of life, and to enhance and keep
Thank you, sir.
Vistancia's and Peoria's vision.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Thank you. Any other council comments? Okay. None? I've got a few here. So I want to thank you to Amkor for having faith in the city of Peoria. We have an amazing staff, as you guys are well aware, I'm sure. You know, from Jen, I'm not going to mention everybody because I'm not going to get everybody's name in here, but I've seen, you know, Jen and Mike, you know, and Rick Buss, and just the amount of work, you know, Kevin Burke and the rest of the guys really put a tremendous effort into doing this. You know, we have a tremendous team, obviously, and we've spoken about that. From day one, from me, January 3rd of last year, we talked about vision and determination in trying to reshore manufacturing here in the United States. For me, it is a national defense priority. It is it's not just about one area, one city, one county, one state. It's about our nation. Manufacturing and bringing specifically tech back into not just Peoria, but back into the United States at this level really changes our ability as a nation to be able to protect our nation. Every aspect from being able to have our vehicles running. We all went through COVID. We all saw how hard it was to actually buy a car or get transportation and do those types of things. 21%, I think it is, of their sales. You name a car company, they're in it. You name a your key fob, they're in it. And most of us have iPhones. We've seen what Apple announced right when you announced this. It is the future of tech. It's the future of our country. The quickest way to be able to stop a war in this nation is not send more troops. It's not put more soldiers on the ground. It's to drive technology in this country. And that is the quickest way to be able to make sure that somebody does not come to our doorstep and does not start a global war. It is absolutely the biggest deterrent. You talk to anybody in the national defense capability across this globe, from Cofer Black, who was the former director of the CIA, all the way down. This is the direction of being able to stop future conflicts. So from me personally, I want to thank you all for actually spending the time and having the determination and grit to be able to do this. This is, I have a small manufacturing facility personally. I know how difficult it is to actually do that. The amount of investment that you're entrusting not only into our city, but in the state, and the amount of jobs that you're creating and the impact you're going to make on the state is very appreciated from every single citizen, I promise you. So thank you for doing what you're doing. To our staff, I know I say you guys are awesome all the time, from the triad all the way down, right? We have I'm going to just say it this way, we have a kick-ass team. We really do. There is no other way of saying it. I've seen what you guys have put together. I've seen how you've looked at protecting the city. Jen, I've seen your determination in trying to make this happen. And a lot of people go, well, this is it. This is the pinnacle. This is the beginning. I promise you this is the beginning. And I think Amkor knows that and have actually said this. This is the first step for not only Peoria, but also Arizona in the Northwest Valley. Everybody sees TSMC as one piece. It is everything else that comes around that. We are looking at how do we revolutionize tech, how do we revolutionize manufacturing, how do we bring jobs, and how do we have the ability to not have people leave our city, the 85% of people that leave our city to go to work somewhere else, stay in our city and focus on the Northwest Valley. It is not only going to change manufacturing in this country, it's also going to change people's lives on a daily basis. It's going to change the ability for us to be able to have families spend more time together. It's going to be able to not only reshore manufacturing, but it also allows us to be able to, in a way, reshore families to make sure they're actually spending time actually working in our city on a daily basis, which then determines how much money they spend in our city, which then becomes cyclical. It is all a cyclical approach of how this works. And it is very appreciated that the staff understands that vision, drives that vision, has the grit to get that vision done and accomplished. And I know of obviously many big things that you guys are all working on, and we're all excited to see that come to fruition. Jen, you mentioned this is a catalyst. I would say that the staff and the direction that you guys are driving this is the catalyst for our future. Very, very appreciated all the work and determination that you guys have drawn. Don't start crying. Okay. Don't tear up. I'm not talking to you, Mike. I'm talking to Jen. We know you don't have tears. We're not worried about that. Staff is laughing because they know that's true. It is just very, very appreciated. So thank you for everybody's hard work and determination to make this happen. So with that, I will call for a vote. Do I have a motion to approve agenda item 9R?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you very much. Please vote. And with that, it passes 7-0. So, thank you.